Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Music Den. I'm your host, Armando Venditti. Hoping you guys are having a good day. And above all else, that you are looking after yourselves and one another. Ladies and gentlemen, before I get into the topic of yet another fantastic episode, I want to welcome back to the channel Mr. Jim Bricker. How's it going, Jim?
I am doing very well, Armando. Thank you for asking. Are you doing okay?
I'm freezing my butt off. Minus
Well, okay.
25 with the wind chill. Here in Edmonton, yes, it's quite cold. It's quite cold.
Hey.
And Mr. Ken Jishire, how's it going, Ken?
It's going well, Armando. Maybe we can come up with some ass shakers in this video to warm your butt up.
Very possible. Very possible. Always love a good ass shaker of an album. All right.
Stranger things have happened here, that's for sure.
That is for sure. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with our series of album anniversaries. Today we are tackling albums that are celebrating their 50th anniversary in the month of March. And we like this idea so much, we're going to be doing it twice. There are 10 albums to be discussed in the month of March for the year 1975. So this is part one of a two-part episode. And some interesting choices on this list, ladies and gentlemen. Stick around. It's going to be wonderful. Now,
Pretty
um,
diverse list today, I have to say.
yes, eclectic does not even begin to cover it. Okay. But I'm not one to gossip, so you didn't hear that from me. Now, like I said, we have come up with a list of 10. And in part one, and the first five on the list that we're going to cover, uh, it is pretty broad and eclectic list. So, again, because I was brought up right by my mama, I'm going to pass the virtual mic over to Ken, and he's
Ah,
going to
thank you, Armando.
talk
So we're
about the first
talking
album.
March 1975. The first album we're coming up with is the album "The Dictator's Go." The Dictator's Girl Goes Crazy by the Dictators came out in March 1975. Protopunk. Um, I never heard this album before. I'm always a bit skeptical when it comes to punk because it's not really my thing in general. But this album surprised me. It's definitely an album of its time as far as, the sound and the production values or whatever. But listening through the whole thing, gave me a different impression than if I'd have just chosen one song to listen to. I think it's very consistent all the way through. The album is better than it should be as far as me. Um, I associate punk with fast, fast driven hard guitar chords, simple songs that if you're stretching it maybe three chords. I don't associate um, great guitar efficiency and playing, but there's some darn good guitar work on this album. The songs do not follow those simple chord structures, which surprised me. Um, the lead singer does a lot of what punk singers did back then, which is kind of not so much sing as
Scream.
yell or say it. Yeah,
Yep.
without pitch, almost like talking it.
Mhm.
Uh, Here it is a combination of both. So that surprised me also. Um, and I figure I could be wrong because I'm going before Jim. Um, I would suspect that Jim would love this album, especially because in the lyrics they use the term edumacation.
I, I
So,
didn't
which
pick
is
that out. Thank you
oh,
for
Yeah,
okay,
pointing
I
that
didn't
out.
which is
either.
one of his favorite words or non-words or whatever.
Exactly.
But so yeah, whenever I hear the Dictators from now on, I'll think of Jim. Um, I
Benito Mussolini.
yes, that's right. So so this album was really a pleasant surprise for me. I didn't have much expectation of it. I will probably not buy a copy of it and, keep it in my car and listen to it over and over again. But listening to it for this research was not unpleasant. So kudos to the Dictators.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just a bit more background on the album. It was recorded again in 1975 at CBS Studios, released through Epic Records. The album was produced by Murray Krugman and Sandy Pearlman. Sandy Pearlman, for those of you who don't know, the few of you out there who don't know, was basically someone would consider the mastermind behind Blue Oyster Cult. He was the manager. Uh, he recently passed away a few years back. The album has a playing time of 34 minutes and 48 seconds. So I'm sure you got that out of the way. My apologies, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay.
Now, down to the man of the hour, Jim, for
Okay.
his take on this album.
Yeah, this is to me, this was a perfect blend of power pop and punk. And I think, Ken, you nailed it right when you said, called it, proto punk, is that, this is not it. Punk rock as most people know it. This album is not it. It is a precursor. It is a definitive stepping stone on your way there. Um, I think, for me, a lot of the times when I think of punk rock, what comes to my mind is like, Minor Threat, which is just really aggressive, really fast, screaming vocals. To me, Sex Pistols is, kind of tame, as is the Ramones are kind of
Yeah.
tame. Ramones to me are more, power pop than punk, but I can definitely chart the course of Dictators to Ramones to Sex Pistols to like, I don't know, insert something in here.
Dead Kennedys,
Whatever Jello Biafra's band was, I forget what the
Dead
name of it
Kennedys,
is.
Black
Dead
Flag.
Dead Kennedys, Black Flag, yeah, Minor Threat, stuff like that. Um, I was pleasantly surprised. I got a big laugh out of the two covers of this album. I Got You, Babe, and California Sun.
That's right.
I just had a
They
great
were
big
great.
laugh out loud moment of California Sun. I thought it was fantastic. Speaking of the Ramones, there is a song on this album called Master Race Rock that has "Let's Go" in there, and I wonder if the Ramones lifted that. Um,
With Blitzkrieg Bop. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, there's in doing some research to find out a little bit more, about this record. I found an article that quoted Trouser Press, and it said that this band deserves scads of credit for blazing a long trail, melding the essentials of junk culture with loud, hard, fast rock and roll, and thus creating an archetype. And the Village Voice also says that this album is kind of like a blueprint for bad taste, humor, and defiance. That really, again, it it's the stepping stone towards, Ramones, Sex Pistols. You can throw Beastie Boys in there as well as these guys did. It's a fun record. Um, and I think it's sort of more of a musicological touchstone than it is something that you want to put on and listen to for fun, at least for me. I mean, I'm glad I listened to it. I enjoyed it. But to me, if I want to, like if I was putting together a playlist of stuff from 1975, I might put something from this album on there because again, it's a direction forward. It's pointing, where things are going to go. And to me, that's important, when you're putting together playlists of a specific year, because not only do you want to include some of the monster hits of that year, but something that kind of says, and there's stuff bundling, bubbling under the surface. And I think Dictators was the Dictators Go Girl Crazy was definitely bubbling under the surface on this one. And I love the juxtaposition between this album and the next one we're going to discuss. So
Oh, yeah. As night as today. Okay,
certainly.
thank you so much,
Oh,
Jim, for that enlightenment discussion and your point of view on this album. Well, something was definitely bubbling when I heard this album. It was my lunch from the day before. I there you can definitely see the early inspiration for punk rock on this album. Yeah, no, no. I couldn't get into this album. I listened to it. I could not get into it. The vocals drove me up a wall. I don't know what the cover is all about, in terms of, I don't know
The
what.
pro wrestler thing, Fred
Yeah,
Blassie sort of deal.
yeah, no. I couldn't, the two covers, I Got You, Babe, and California Sun. The vocals get on my nerves. Um, It's just I couldn't get into it. It's just musically, there's nothing redeeming about this album in my point of view. I can't listen to it. Um, I wouldn't even pay 1 cent for it. I, I couldn't.
Do you have 1 cent to pay for it?
We don't have pennies anymore in Canada, so we don't know.
Okay, all right then.
Um, there's just nothing about this album that works for me. Yes, you can tell that this is the early leanings of punk rock. You can tell that, very powerful, powerful three chord structures and all that stuff. But no, there's nothing on this album that I would ever want to listen to again. I now know what to avoid, and when I look in the bargain bins and stuff at secondhand record stores. So
There you
that's
go.
good. I thank them for that, but that's about it, really. So
I'll take the box set of Dictators Go Crazy off your Christmas list then.
thank you, thank you so much. No, I can't do it. Can't do it. No, no. Moving on, ladies and gentlemen, from night as to day in terms of the musical spectrum here. Our next album that we're going to be discussing that is celebrating its 50th anniversary. We are talking, I think you've heard of this band, ladies and gentlemen, Steely Dan, and the album Katie Lied, released on March 1st, 1975 through ABC Records. Has a playing time of 35 minutes and 20 seconds, so not very long for a CD, but perfect for a vinyl release. It was recorded from November to January of November 20, hold on, November of 74 to January of 75, produced by Gary Katz. Um, this is where the band Steely Dan slowly sorry, from, there's only coffee in my cup, that slowly morphed from a full-fledged functioning touring band into what would become predominantly a duo of Walter Becker and Donald Fagen, with contributions from Danny Diaz on this album. But I'll give my opinion at the very end. Over to Ken for his view on Katie Lied.
Okay. Man, I've been listening to this album since it came out. Um, it's part of my DNA by now, as are most Steely Dan albums. Um, the fact that they have made at this point the transition from a live band to a studio band, to me, is, I think it's noticeable. Um, in here, we start seeing songs that are um, arguably um, not recreatable on stage. Um,
Easily.
it also, in style, also, so many of these songs just is a solid point and a transition to their next phase. Um, it starts off with Black Friday. Um, I think has high commercial appeal for them. I mean, you could hear this on the radio easily. It's interesting because um, it's one of these songs that a vast majority of the song is in one chord, and it's only gets to the end of the verses with the quote unquote chorus when Black Friday comes, you know, that there's some real chord changes. The rest of it is just that da 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 da
Mhm.
through.
Mhm.
Um, that's tricky to do and keep it interesting, but they do. There's not a whole lot of songs that are basically just one chord. Not many
Yeah,
good songs.
especially in Steely Dan.
Yeah, yeah. When one of the great things about them is their plethora of chords and whatever. But listening to the instrumentation and what they're doing with the instruments, even during those sections where it's one chord, it's deceptively simple. There's a lot of stuff going on there. It isn't just one chord. Um, with the instruments doing all kinds of different things, with the guitars, with the two keyboards and whatever. Anyway, it's a fascinating song. Um, I think particularly Bad Sneakers and Doctor Wu are a solid point to where they're going
Mhm.
as far as style and mix and whatnot. And you've got Daddy Don't Live and Chain Lightning. They're just two funky songs, white boy funk, and at a really good level. And this version of Your Gold Teeth is my favorite. I like this
Mhm.
better than the first one. It goes deep into jazz in the intro to this song.
Mhm.
You don't know if it's changing keys or where it's going or whatever. And the final track, I never really thought about it consciously, but the way the final track ends, you got an oboe in rock. That doesn't happen very often. It just ends the way you wouldn't think a song would end, and it's glorious. So I don't know if I'm really saying anything other than just gushing over how great this album is, but hey, it is what it is, and I
You can
am who
gush.
I, you know. Um,
You're allowed to gush.
yeah, it's well, there's some non-gushing coming up later on, but anyway, yeah, this is the turning point for the band, not just in the way they operate as a band. And let's face it, a choir of Michael McDonald's, in these background vocals where he's doing
Mhm.
all the vocals, he's layering all these vocals. It's just like, holy cow. Uh,
Mhm.
Yeah,
Anybody who knows Michael McDonald will recognize this and
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
get a little
yeah,
moist. I don't know. It's just,
Did you
it's
a
just,
just
just
little.
a wonderful, it's just it just adds so much. If they'd have used regular backup singers for those parts, wouldn't have been nearly as effective. So
Agreed.
anyway, some people call it yacht rock. I don't care what you call it. Just put the album on.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we heard Ken say get a little moist.
And
All
there
right.
we go.
Moving on. Thank you for that
Moving on.
enlightening viewpoint. All right, Jim.
Well, I am going with the fact that there are several moments of this album that are sponge-worthy,
Oh God.
because they're that good. This album, I first heard snippets from Katie Lied when I purchased Steely Dan Greatest Hits in '78. The tunes that they had on there were Black Friday, Bad Sneakers, and Doctor Wu. And I had never heard those before. They didn't get any radio play. Asia was the first album that I bought. So, everything that I knew about Steely Dan up to that point had been just the you know, exclusively through radio or the Asia album. And
Mhm.
my mind was blown about how good these songs were. I'm like, holy crap, these are amazing. Why have I not heard them before?
Mhm.
Um, you're right, Bad Sneakers with the layers and layers and layers of Michael McDonald. back harmony vocals, and Jeff Piccaro's amazing drum playing, and the engineering with that boom that comes 3 or 4 times during the bridge. um oh man, there's certain spots of brilliance that I want to talk about on this album. Ken, you were talking about the oboe on Throwback the Little Ones. You're talking about the instrumental, the end of the instrumental bridge, right? On that one. Because the very, very end of this song is a piano tag by Michael O'Mardian that I don't know if it was composed or improvised. I haven't found anything in my research that says one way or the other. But this concluding little piano figure is it is a sonic miracle of like Johann Sebastian Bach and Thelonious Monk combined. It's kind of perfect in its structure, but then it just kind of goes sideways just a little bit. And it's just I get kind of musical goosebumps when I talk about it and I hear it in my head. It's just beautiful. Dr. Wu, the song's been talked about a couple of times. Again, Michael Omartian, his piano line after the lyric about Cuban gentlemen sleep all day is just this, it's this thing of stunning beauty, just simplicity that really takes that lyric line and just puts it in a musical form and context that's just to die for. And of course, Phil Wood's sax solo on Doctor Wu is just
Yeah.
legendary. Your brain falls out of your head. It's just so dang good. Um, we talked earlier. It says, "Geez, we could spend an entire episode talking about Katie Lied." We won't. Last comment I'll make on it is I to me, Asia is my favorite Steely Dan album. And number two is always a toss up between either The Royal Scam or Katie Lied. And every time I listen to one of those, I'm like, well, it's got to be The Royal Scam. I mean, listen to how amazing that is. And then I hear Katie Lied and say, Jim, you ignorant slut. It has got to be Katie Lied because of all these, 4 or 5 different reasons there. I don't think I'm ever going to be able to reconcile for myself which is my number two because I love them both for different reasons. Um, yeah, Katie Lied is it's I don't yeah, call it yacht rock, call it late to lunch, whatever. It's you gotta have it. It is just absolutely a fantastic album, piece of music. It's a tight, what'd you say it was? Like, 34 minutes or so, Armando?
Yeah, 35 minutes and 20 seconds. Something. Yeah.
I tell you what, it is some of the best 35 minutes of music making that you will ever hear. Also, in Steely Dan circles, people talk about how this album was kind of a sonic blunder just because of some of the recording equipment that they were trying to use to make it sound like tip-top perfect. I, to me, this album sounds absolutely stunning. There's no sonic degradation to my ears. Of course, I'm not Becker and Fagan, so obviously their opinion means more than mine. But Katie Lied is just a stunner. It's practically perfect. Just misses it by that.
Okay. Thank you, Jim, you ignorant slut. Now, I first of all, my view on Cutie Light. I didn't know this album existed until until about just around when COVID hit. We were on lockdown, and I purchased. I went on Amazon and I purchased all the albums, and I don't remember this album at all when it first came out. Of course, being 5 years old, what are you going to know, right?
You're forgiven.
Exactly. Though there's a lot here musically. There's a lot here musically. Um, and Steely Dan with this album have proven that a song can be 2 minutes and 30 seconds, but pack a punch in that time frame. Instrumentally, just amazing, just amazing. Uh, 10 tracks on the album. Uh, I'll just go through my notes quickly here. With Black, it starts off with Black Friday. Great shuffle rhythm. I have in my notes. A great heavy guitar. Um, with Bad Sneakers, nice use of when I hear sitar on it, and great harmony vocals on this. Michael McDonald really steps up to the forefront on this album. In terms of the background vocals, Rose Darling, Pop Confection. It's just a beautifully well crafted uh, track with, fantastic harmony vocals. What I call call and response between Fagan and McDonald. Just amazing, like beautiful. Um, you know, uh, Daddy don't live here in New York City no more. Again, another fantastic track. Dr. Wu, beautiful piano, great sax on that track, just amazing. Um, Everyone's gone to the movies. Okay.
There's some unsavory characters running around in that song.
Oh, I know, but in my notes I have here, nice use of vibraphone, great melody. I just love that track.
Yeah.
Again, it is pop confection to the ears. It is just beautifully done. You know,
It
you
is the best song about child pornography that you will ever hear.
There you
So
go. There you go. It's a family show, guys, but there you go. Now,
there you go.
you go teeth, dramatic piano chords, nice jazz passages on this track, lush harmonies. To me, the ending sounds unfinished, but you know what? There are other songs that maybe, musically the ending was unfinished and they just wanted to leave it like that. Who knows? Uh, Chain Lightning, another fantastic. And what I have in my notes here, nice blues guitar, um, what I call great strutting rhythm. Just really, just to me, kind of like down and dirty.
Yeah.
Um, Any World That I'm Welcome to, very nice piano driven track, great harmonies. I mean, just beautifully done. And, you know, uh, throw back the little ones, a lot within 3 minutes and 11 seconds. Just a fantastic way to end the album. The more I listen to Katie Lied, the more I like it. Uh, there's no denying it. It's a fantastic album. This album didn't sell as well as Pretzel Logic the year before. It kind of went under the radar for some reason.
Yeah.
And again, this was at a time where bands were releasing and touring, like an album a year and touring. So, I mean, and some bands, like I've said before, some artists were releasing two albums a year because they were contractually obligated to do so. But yeah, this album needs to be listened to more. I'd like to hear what songs didn't make it onto the album, what songs are around during this time frame that were unreleased tracks or possible B-sides. This album deserves a bit of a not a bit of a sorry, it deserves an anniversary release in terms of a special edition, in my very uh, humble opinion. But this album is simply fantastic. Um, the fact that you've got again Michael McDonald on background vocals, you've got Jeff Porcaro. Like, my God.
Wet
Uh,
behind the ears, like 16, 17-year-old Jeff Beccaro just killing it.
yeah, and a little footnote, 2 years after this, Jeff Porcaro and the rest of Toto would be featured on Lisa Dabello's debut solo release in 1977 for MCA Records, produced by David Foster. That won't hold that against her. We won't go there. But yeah, no, the sheer power and finesse of the musicianship that is on this album and the vocals, stunning,
Yeah.
just stunning. So, I mean, I
Yep.
can't say any more than that. So,
And aside from there being no deluxe edition of this, just recently there was a remaster vinyl for all those
Audio files. Yeah.
really serious audio files, like your
Yeah.
friend Jim.
Yep.
Um, so I wish I had that kind of system. I don't even have a turntable anymore, but just
I've
to
got
hear
two.
what
Yeah.
how it's like, how can that be improved? But everything I've read online says it's just absolutely mind blowing. So okay,
My understanding is that for those without a turntable, that there are SACD versions of the mix that was done for the vinyl.
Okay.
So if CD is your thing and you can
Okay.
SACD this sucker, um, that can be had as well. And for quite a cheaper price point than the
yeah,
UHQR vinyl.
yeah. Now, Jim, you mentioned a while ago that this album was almost perfect. What
Yes.
keeps it from perfection?
It's a
Um,
good
I
question.
think
What would keep it from perfection?
I think for me, Daddy Don't Live in That New York City No More is kind of a little bit of a minor tune. I mean, I like the funky bluesiness of it, but to me, it doesn't live up to the standard of the other ones, of
Yeah.
the other tracks on here.
Okay.
So
Um,
would you call it a glass ceiling album?
no, there's we talked about this thing about glass ceiling records, and for me, there's something about it about a glass ceiling where it's like every song on here, every song on there is perfect, but there's something amorphous about either each of the songs or the way it's constructed on the album. There's something that kind of holds it back from saying, yes, this is absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
Katie lied for me. I think there's nine perfect tracks on here, and Daddy Don't Live is just good.
Yeah.
But as a whole, this album is just, I again, it's sponge worthy. There's so many moments on here that are just absolutely, to die for
Yeah.
musically.
Sponge
You
worthy.
you know,
You see, because the way my brain works, I agree. Daddy Don't Live Here is my least favorite song on the album. However, um, in my mind, the worst Steely Dan song is better than the best songs by most other
sure,
artists. So
yeah, I
yeah,
hear
it's
you.
relative. It's relative. So, but
Hmm.
that's a very fair assessment. I wouldn't
Yeah,
disagree. Okay,
good question, my friend.
thank you.
Okay.
I found it online. So.
All right. We're gonna move on from the Love Fest, and we're gonna just continue on with the our next album, ladies and gentlemen. Our next album on our list um, is David Bowie, Young Americans, released March 7th, 1975 through RCA Records, produced by David Bowie, uh, Tony Visconti, and Harry Maslin. Has a playing time of 40 minutes exactly, Bowie's ninth release. Recorded from August of 1974 to January of 75. Eight tracks in total. Um, Bowie, at this point in time in his career, this is an artist who was signed to a uh, two album, two albums a year deal. Had to release a single every 30 days under his
Every 30
control.
days?
Yes, with RCA. Yes, so he was on a roll, I guess, at
Okay.
this point. This album has been described as plastic soul. Um, Overall, features such musicians as Carlos Alomar, backup singers Ava Cherry, Luther Vandross at the time, and John Lennon also appears on this album. But I will say my opinion of the album and move over to Ken to give his opinion of the album.
Yeah, the the term plastic soul was actually Bowie's description
Yes.
of it. Most critics referred to it as the blue eye soul. Um, and yeah, this was his initial departure away from glam rock,
Hmm.
and that's okay with me. I mean, this has two of his hugest hits. Um, for me, that opening. 30 seconds with that drum intro to Young Americans is, it's etched in my brain. I will remember that um, long past Alzheimer's, deleting the rest of my brain. But but anyway, overall, this album is more commercially accessible by the public. It not being glam rock, because glam rock to me seems to have been a fairly narrow musical niche at the time. And so, like I said, and then to have a gospel quartet for background singing on throughout the album, not just on one or two tracks. Like say Luther Vandross is the name that most people of our generation would recognize. And that really just added a whole new dimension to the sound in the songs. Um, I love the way, one thing I love about Bowie, even though I don't like all of his works, is it doesn't matter what genre he is writing in, whether it's just absolutely obscure or what is considered his most popular overall.
Hmm.
It's still Bowie. You can tell by the way the songs are constructed. It's still Bowie. It still has that initial weirdness to it, whether it's a popular weird the other kind. Um, I have a little bit of trouble hearing John Lennon on the Across the Universe cover.
Hmm.
Um, but it's a very interesting cover, and I love the fact that David Bowie really added so much to the melody line because the original melody line is kind of static for the most part, but Bowie just Bowiefies it, and it's just really nice to hear him throw off the shackles of you know the way it was originally sung and do his own thing. But
Hmm.
yeah, if I didn't know Lennon was on this song, wouldn't have figured it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is another turning point album for Bowie. And if you're not familiar with the non-singles, it's worth a shot. It's worth giving it a shot. So you may like it, you may not, but yeah, that's what it's all about.
Hmm.
Good Bowie album. What?
Okay, Jim.
Moi, yes. So this album was born out of, I think, Bowie's boredom with what he was doing musically on the Diamond Dogs tour.
Yeah.
So there was a break in the tour, and he started bringing people in the studio to sort of get some soul going into things. And there's some like, proto disco on this album too. And in fact, and when they restarted the tour, it was now the Soul Tour, where, as it's become known. It's like a lot of the Diamond Dog stuff was taken a back seat to these soulified arrangements. And
Hmm.
the other thing I should say is that, gentlemen, I want to kind of gently slap both of you for not mentioning the contribution of David Sanborn to this record, which helps make the sound of this whole thing just really come alive.
Duly noted. Thank you
We're
for
not done
slapping.
yet.
Go
So
ahead.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, all right, okay, fine. I just figured it would come up sooner because it's such an integral part of this record. I like this record. I have most Bowie albums I have kind of a love-hate relationship with because there's a lot of good stuff on there, but with every good thing, there's like a what the heck were you thinking thing. The only the only standouts for me, like all the way through, are Ziggy and Station to Station, but that's another video altogether.
Yes.
For me, this is an album of three categories. The first category, I kind of go, oh, sweet Lord, these songs are so good. The title track, Fame. The second track on the album, Win. Oh, I just love that. Just the way it's so gently constructed, the vocal, Sanborn sax, Alomar's guitar. It's just, this pseudo, it's not even a gospel rave up, but you can hear, the, I'll say the DNA of that in a lot of what's going on in here. Fascination is another great song. I think that's the third track on side one.
Yeah.
Um, then to me, there's a category of almost, which is songs that are, not quite amazing, but they're good. I'll listen to them. Somebody Up There Likes Me, right. Um, and then we sort of get into the category of kind of a swing and a miss. Can You Hear Me? And sadly for me, the cover of Across the Universe doesn't work
Mm.
at all. I mean, I hear what you're saying, Ken, about Bowie putting, a much different vocal spin on things and carrying it melodically, but it kind of just, to me, it takes it. I don't know if the genre that Bowie applies to it really works well thematically with the song itself. Um, so, for me, it's just kind of a swing and a miss. But I the points you're making resonate, and I can see where you're coming from on that. It just doesn't hit me the same way.
Sure. Well,
Okay.
I'm always, when it comes to covers, I'm always torn. Um, there's some covers that I like that are quote unquote true to the original, but sometimes
Yeah.
if it's really, really, really true, my thought is, well, what's the point? So
Yeah.
so taking it another completely direction, a lot of times is a hit or a miss, but at the same time, I will tip my hat to the effort. And
Yep.
sometimes I'll find that with repeated listening, it's like, well, it's not quite as bad as I originally thought.
Mhm.
But yeah, I had actually forgotten that that was on this album. So, but yeah, all good points. Very good.
All right. Um, my view of this album. Um, it's not one of my favorites. It's got to be said. You know, I like the title track. I like Fame. I've always liked the track Fame. Um, I like the fact that, he see the thing with Bowie was he was always pushing forward. He was always changing. He thought that the key to his longevity was to be musically transformative and just kept going forward and never staying in one place
Sure.
at one time. And this album is a testament to that. I mean, um, the use of Luther Vandross on background vocals, and he liked what Vandross did so much with the music, with the vocal arrangements on Fascination. He gave him a writing credit on the track. So, uh, he really appreciated what he gave to for the track. But the rest of the album, when it's all right, Fascination itself, it's not. I don't know. Maybe I need to spend more time with the album. I don't get it. The cover of Across the Universe. No, I can't. It's just it is. It sounds like Bowie giving labor. I mean, his vocals are just so drawn out and like, like it just labored and forced. I mean, you can hear Lennon in the mix on the end, right? But very faintly, like, oh yeah, that is John Lennon on the track. It's just not an album that is memorable for me. Um, in terms of Bowie's catalog. Yeah, it's all right. I mean, I was given this album for as a free copy from A&M Records when the catalog was on Ryco Records. They were distributed by A&M. So I got a whole stack of Bowie and other albums on the label, but I, this album for me is just, it's not one of my favorites. I can't get behind it for some reason.
Should we not talk about his pinups album? Maybe we should avoid that.
Pinups. Well, yeah. Well,
That's a mixed bag for sure.
yeah, it is. And you know what? I mean, yeah, let's talk about it for a brief minute. I mean, he he records, Ziggy Stardust, Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust, and the Spires from Mars. He goes on tour. While on tour, he writes and records Aladdin Sane,
Mhm.
and which he described as Ziggy on tour in America. Then he is under pressure from, pardon the Queen reference, he's under pressure from RCA to come up with another album after Aladdin Sane. He comes up with Pinups with Twiggy on the cover. I mean, and yeah, he was just on a roller coaster, like go, 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 go. And to me, this is the result of him being on that roller coaster, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to get shot for that in the comments, but
Well,
it
for
is
a
my
lot of
opinion.
artists that release entire albums of covers, that it's their least successful album. And
Yeah,
so yeah, it's not a must listen, but it's a curiosity. But yeah, I get it. I
yeah,
get it.
yeah.
Okay.
I got you. All
I
right.
have never heard pinups.
Um, it's a half hour or 40 minutes that you won't get back. I'm sorry.
Right
Um,
then?
I mean, that's my opinion, but check it
Well, like
out.
I say,
I
it's a curiosity. It's not essential by any means, but you know, I think it's for a music aficionado. I think it's at worst.
What was that face you just made? A music aficionado. I
I,
mean,
I don't know.
oh
I
my
don't
goodness. Okay. Okay.
know.
Well,
Face for
I
radio. You know.
there I've heard people say that pinups, when they talk about cover albums, a lot of people hold pinups in the highest regard, saying it's like one of the best cover albums
Mhm.
ever done. And so I'm again now I want to check it out even more to see
one,
on what side of the fence I
Well,
land on.
yeah. Well, I
one,
would guess that probably most of those people are hardcore Bowie fans.
probably I remember reading one of the criticisms of pinups was that he picked songs that were only 10 years old to
Oh,
record. So, and RCA basically said to him, "What are you doing? Like, why are you giving us this?" And he's like, "You wanted an album. This is what I'm giving you. Leave me alone. Like, right now, I can't do any more than this
yeah.
right now." So, but you know what,
It,
ladies and gentlemen, we must carry on. Our
mm,
next album on our list um, is, for all intents and purposes, a solo album. We were talking Justin Hayward, sorry, and John Lodge from the Moody Blue Jays, released March 10th, 1975. March was a busy year. On Threshold Records, a Moody Blues label, produced by Tony Clark, recorded from June to December of 74, has a playing time of 50 minutes and 48 seconds. Over to Ken.
okay. A lot of people consider this a Moody Blues album. You've got Justin Hayward and John Lodge, who are two of the major songwriters of Moody Blues, and you've also had the album produced by the Moody Blues longtime producer Tony Clark. You know,
Mhm. Mhm.
they don't go really; they stay within their niche,
Mhm.
and it uses a lot of orchestra and whatever. But I love this album. I find there's a fair amount of songs on this album that are moody blues, proggish. But then there are songs on here that aren't so proggish. That it would seem like it would fit on a solo album of other things. It's also got a good mixture. It's 10 songs, and the song length varies from 3.5 minutes to 6 minutes. And it's almost kind of half and half, shorter songs and longer songs. The longer songs being more um, uh, Moody Blues style or feeling with the orchestra and everything. Um, and the shorter ones are not. One of my favorite songs off this is "Who Are You Now?" A lovely guitar ballad that is just Justin Hayward with the guitar. You know, it still has the same production value of a Moody Blues, but it's very simple. It's very stripped down. It feels very personal.
Mhm.
Um, Other favorite tracks on this is the opening song, "My Brother." Saved by the Music is one of the big upbeat, bombastic, Moody Blues feeling epics.
Yep.
And I Dreamed Last Night, which I think was a single from the album. I don't remember for sure. But yeah, a lot of people just consider this, another Moody Blues album. It's got orchestra, it's got flutes, it's got, all of those things. Um, a lot of times you'll see this album referenced that refer to the pairing of Hayward and Lodge as the Blue Jays. So if you see Blue Jays, a lot of times that's, specifically the pairing of these two. So it's yeah, it's mid 70s orchestral rock and stuff like that. But I I really do like it. Actually, I would go to this before some of the actual Moody Blues albums. But
Okay.
and that's probably my history because I bought it when it first came out, and I've lived with it for this long. But yeah, this is a thumbs up for me.
All right, Ken, thank you for your view on Blue Jays. Interesting. All right, on to the man of the hour, Jim.
Oh, am I? All right. I I think I've come to terms that I am not the target audience for Moody Blues records. Um, with the exception of about half of Days of Future Past and maybe like 25% of Long Distance Voyager, I just cannot find my way into any Moody Blues record. Uh, and this kind of fits in that category. Now, of course, I say that, and then I think of like, the question, which I really like that song, but I don't know what it is. To me, the lyrics are all kind of a bit hippie-ish and a bit twee here and there. But the music has some good qualities to it, but they don't produce songs that really connect with me. Um, And there's just a few things that I kind of pointed out in the notes that I took. Like there's this fake bluegrass violin on the beginning of You that's really musically out of place with like what's happening with the rest of the song. It seems it's this real distraction as opposed to being a bit of variety and color to me. Um, Saved by the Music is, wasn't a bad song, but boy, that intro to me is like really over the top bad. I just had to kind of laugh out loud and hearing it. It seemed kind of Spinal Tapish in a way. Um, I Dreamed Last Night to me is pretty good, but there's some like squiggly things going on with the vocals on that album or that particular track, excuse me, which just don't. I don't know. Maybe I was in kind of a cantankerous mood when listening to this record, but
You
there
cantankerous?
it's
Never.
oh, does the day end and why? there's a lot of cantankerosity coming out of this vehicle, I tell
I'll
you
believe
that.
you, sir. I'll believe you.
Um, yeah, I this sounds like a Moody Blues record. You're right, Ken. And if you're a Moody Blues fan, I get why you would like this. I'm just not I'm just not in that category. Um, the bonus track that's appended to the LP, the single that Hayward and Lodge did with 10cc, that's got some interesting points to it. But again, the lack of a hook, the lack of anything kind of strongly melodic that leaps out and captures my interest, it's just kind of like, all right, this I barely remember listening to this album. There's just so much about it that just did not land in any way, shape, or form. Which that happens with
Yeah.
Sure.
albums, and I know that there's a lot of people out there who really like this and really enjoy it. I'm just not in that camp.
Jim, just let me point out one thing, and I
Please.
mean this with all my heart.
Oh my God.
I love you no matter how wrong you can be.
Okay. There we
It
go.
makes you human. This brings you down to the level of us mortals. So,
Does it now?
yes,
Wait until we discuss the next record.
Well,
I
all
guess
right.
I'll have to. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Laurel and Hardy. Now,
There's a Blazing Saddles reference in there, which I would love to make, but
um, Jim is not in the minority in his opinion of this album. I listened to it. I had great hopes for this album. Um, Bit of background on this album. This was recorded during a time when, after the band recorded and toured for the Seventh Sojourn release, and instead of Hayward and Lodge were summoned to a meeting by the rest of the band, and they were told they wanted to go on an extended break because everybody was exhausted. Everybody was getting on each other's nerves, and they wanted a bit of a separation. So they went on a 4-year break.
Mhm.
This was recorded during that break,
Mhm.
obviously, and uh, usually when you're in a band, well, from what I've read about bands that have been together for a while, when you're in a band and you want to do a solo album, usually you hear the artist say, you know what, I wanted to do something that was outside again, the Moody Blues camp or the Queen camp or or Rush camp. I wanted to do something that was mine, all mine, and no one else. Uh, that's not what I hear on this album. Um, I do find it to be, you know, the only way I can describe it is a Moody Blues knockoff. I mean, like great orchestrations, beautiful use of clarinet. There's just something here that isn't here. Do you know what I mean? There's something lacking on this album, and I know I'm going to get shot. I know I am. And I got my bulletproof vest on, so don't worry about that. But I just there's none of the songs here grab me. Like Jim said, there's no hook, there's no immediacy for me to like, oh, okay, I can here's something in that, I can latch onto that. Da, da. Nothing is here. And I was looking at the list of albums to listen to. I'm like, okay, I knew Young Americans and oh, Justin Hayward. Okay, Blue Jays. Never heard that. Now I know why. I don't get it. I don't get it. And when I read up on the non-album single, Blue Guitar, that with the backing band was 10cc. I love me some 10cc. And I'm like, hey. I'm like, what's there's nothing here, even on the single. I don't get it. I don't understand. Like, I just feel that he had an opportunity just to go beautiful vocals, beautiful, in terms of his vocal ability, he has a great voice, has a great voice. I just felt that maybe he could have gone somewhere different with this and just plodded down the same road and just didn't there's no variation here from a Moody Blues album. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, maybe he wasn't ready to do that. Maybe he wasn't ready to step out of his comfort zone uh, as of yet. But it's just there's nothing here for me.
Well, there's definitely a target audience for this,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
And
And
completely unrelated, because I have never heard anyone say this, but I think Justin Hayward is an underappreciated guitarist.
yeah, I would say that.
Yeah. I'm not saying that from this album, or I'm just saying in general. And I saw the Moody Blues um, back in the late 70s, early 80s.
Mm.
It sucked.
Really?
I don't know if it was the venue, if they were just having a bad night, or whoever was running sound, but it did not sound good. But I have heard some live recordings that sound phenomenal. So I think they were just, having a bad night.
This was the Long Distance Voyager tour?
I think
No, it would
so.
have been before that. Voyager was 81 or 82, so
You
it's
saw.
if you're putting it in
Well, and it might have been
Okay, okay.
81 or 82.
All right.
It was before I moved in 83. So,
Okay,
but
so Patrick Moraz was in the band at that point.
yes,
Keyboards, okay.
okay, yep, yep.
All right.
I'm just thinking it was just a bad night because I would imagine they would have used their own sound man and their own, equipment. So,
Okay.
uh, but yeah, I was not impressed. I thought the opening band, the Go-Go's, did much better, which was a strange pairing for me. But
Go-Go's
It's a
open for
strange
the Moody.
pair.
yeah, that's not the strangest pairing I've ever heard.
I can imagine.
Hendrix opening for the Monkees,
Oh
stuff
yeah,
like
yeah. True
It's
enough.
true.
True enough. True enough.
U2 opening for the Jay Giles band. Now
yeah,
that's a classic.
Oh my God. Okay. All right. All right.
fair enough.
Fair
There
enough.
we go.
Fair enough. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the last album on our list for 50th anniversary album, 50th album anniversaries. It's one of those days, guys. Part one, picking up 10cc. We have 10cc with the original soundtrack, released March 11th, 1975. March was a busy, bloody month for 1975. Uh, I'm going to give you a bit of a background on this album. It's the band's third release. At the time, prior to the release of the album was pretty much in the can. They were signed to UK Records, headed by Jonathan King. The previous album was Sheet Music from 74. And they were unsatisfied with the contract. So they got in touch with the people at Mercury Records, Polygram, Phonogram. And I think it was Kevin Godley who contracted them and said, come around and listen to what we're doing. They played them one song, and on the strength of that one song, the A&R guy from Mercury said, we want this. How much do you want? What do you want for this? We want this. It secured that one track secured them $1 million contract with Mercury Records for the next 5 albums. The album has a playing time of 41 minutes and 46 seconds, produced by 10cc, as all their albums were. Is listed as art rock, uh, prog pop, uh, avant pop in terms of the genre that it's in. I will again hold my opinion to the very end. I will pass the virtual mic. Oh, I can see he's just biting to give his opinion on this album. Jim, what do you think?
Oh, you're gonna mix it up. Okay.
Damn
Dang,
right.
son. Well,
Them's fighting words. Go on.
so I did a little research about this record to try to help me find a way into it. And one of the songs I did a lot of research on for this album was I'm Not in Love, which I'm going to say is a masterpiece. I don't know if that's the song the guy at Mercury Records
It
heard to
is.
say, okay, so worth worth $1 million plus. I just think from a songwriting and production standpoint, the song is an absolute masterpiece. Reading about the creation of the track, however, sort of gave me a bit of insight into what I find about this record that kind of irks me a little bit. Um, the song, as originally presented to the band, was pretty much wholly rejected. And I think it was just on the basis of the arrangement. It sounded too simple. It sounded like, every other thing that was out there. There was nothing special about it, as 10cc defines special. Now I'm not getting exact quotes here, but that's the tone of the article that kind of sits in my
From
head.
what I
How
understand, it was Godley and Cram that were not
Mhm.
on board with the track at first, but go on.
Yeah, and it was the other two members of the band that had written this song.
Yeah.
Um, so at some point in time, though, however, um, I don't recall if it was Godley or Krem who kind of said, why don't we take a crack at doing this track, but let's do it with all vocals. I'm willing to try this track if we do it with all vocals.
Godley.
Now,
Kevin Godley.
okay, it was Godly. Um, and of course, the way they did the vocals are absolutely phenomenal. It's the defining characteristics of the track. And I remember hearing this on the radio, crappy tinny little AM radio in 1975, and I was just floored because again, ain't nothing else sounded like this. It was wholly original and just completely captivating. And for the way that the song eventually ended up, Fender Rhodes, an acoustic guitar and drum machine are kind of prominent. They're a prominent underpinning throughout, but yeah, the vocals are definitely there. So it's not all vocals as it turns out. And of course, there's miscellaneous percussion and bass happening here or there. Um, but anyway, doing all that research gave me a deeper appreciation for the production and the creation of the track, I'm Not in Love. However, what it also revealed is kind of this attitudinal underpinning to the rest of the album, which I kind of likened to these guys think they're the smartest kids in the class. These guys think that they've got kind of a pulse on what good music is, and we're gonna stand for that. And I understand the sentiment about that. Tears for Fears kind of stood a lot on artistic principle for what they wanted to release for music, and a lot of it came out really well. There's just kind of a snarky leading with humor attitude through a lot of this album that just seems to kind of dominate it. And in and with that underlying theme, it just kind of, I don't know, undercuts the whole rest of the album. Um, Un Nuit à Paris is a very engaging song, but it's also really goofy. The lyrical sentiment of I'm not in love, comes better across if you say, I'm not in love. Because the whole thing about the song is like, yeah, trying to deny what you really feel. Um, the second sitting for the Last Supper. I mean, clearly these guys are leading with their humor. Life is a minestrone. There's some power pop absurdity going on there. And I guess the thing that I kind of hold against this album as a whole is that, humor is a very, very subjective thing. And If
No.
you miss and it comes across, as being, pompous, or you're making these observational things, these observational comments, and they don't come across well, it's just kind of like, all right, it's just trying to prove something. Here's my voice on a matter, and I'm trying to just prove it for you. Um, from a production standpoint, this whole album sounds really good. But again, there's something, I'm not in love aside. The whole rest of this album just feels like the smartest kids in the class trying to show how smart they are. And I gotta say, I don't know if I would have teased out that tidbit if I hadn't read that article. So maybe I was unduly influenced by that, and maybe I'm missing the 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 sheen off the diamond that is the original soundtrack. So I defer to Ken and Armando to present maybe an alternate perspective
Do
of
you
just how
do you
ignorant I
feel,
am.
yeah, do you feel that I'm Not in Love fits with the rest of the songs on this album?
Yeah, I do. I
Okay.
think sonically it's a piece of the whole puzzle. It is so daring and original that it stands out, but I think it fits.
All right.
Okay.
Duly noted.
Yeah.
Duly noted. Thank you for your insightful opinion on this album.
I was just hoping that I can just say, yeah, what Ken said, but maybe
Oh, you think you know what I'm going to say, do you?
I assume, and you all know what happens when I assume.
I didn't quite pick up on the pomposity that you did. To me, what Armando, what were all the categories that this was
Art
filed under?
pop, art rock, progressive pop, avant pop.
Okay. Um, the word that comes to my mind listening to this is vaudeville. Um, it's to me musically, it's well, everything. It's over the top. Um, and I I wish I'd have listened to it back when it was released because I might be able to be more objective about it. Um, but as far as song form and whatever, it just seems to be. And I guess if I think about it in those terms, Jim, I would probably, agree with you with that. It's just for me listening to it, it was like, oh, this is really well made, but it's a little too much. Uh, it's a incredible feat as far as being what they did in the studio with these songs, but I would have to be in a particular mood to listen to this, and that mood probably wouldn't happen very often. Um,
You probably mean
I
stone,
thought,
ladies and gentlemen, but we won't go there.
to me, I'm Not in Love kind of stands a little bit aside from the others. I found it, maybe it's because I've been listening to that song for 50 years, but to me, it was a bit more palatable than the other stuff on the album. Production values and sound and all of that, yes, it does fit in within the whole, but it just there again, it's probably because of my familiarity with it that I just um, it just is like a big thumb, a good thumb,
Okay.
but it just stands out from it. But yeah, I always art rock, art pop, stuff like that. For me is very subjective as far as what I like. There's some stuff I like, but there's a lot that just doesn't doesn't do it for me. It's just too much. But a good listen, for at least this.
So I've got a question back to you, Ken.
Yeah.
You're saying you heard sort of a vaudeville-ness across the whole record?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't get vaudeville except for portions of, the leadoff track "Une Nuit à Paris," which of course that whole thing is designed to be Moulin Rouge.
Sure.
So that
Sure.
definitely
Yeah, and that
all those qualities extend.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that probably colored my perception for the rest of the album too. But
Yeah.
it's the song forms are just here again. You're the smartest guy in the class thing is like the song forms is it's always changing, even within a song.
Yeah.
There's no
Yeah.
verse, chorus, bridge, chorus kind of
Fade
thing,
out or dead stop.
which
Yeah.
which songs don't have to be that way,
Exactly.
but it's in classical music we refer to that form as through composed, where there's very little repeated. It just goes into something else and something else. Um, and uh, I, at least on one listening, it just didn't do it for me. Um, so yeah,
Okay.
but I'm glad I listened to it. So now I know.
Uh,
Armando, is this typical amongst 10cc albums?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, my opinion on this album, where do I start? The rule with 10cc was there were no rules.
Right.
Whatever they wanted to do musically, they did. And to hell with anyone else, whatever they thought. Whatever they wanted to do, they did. Now, with this album, it is considered to be, you see, to me, most groups have their critical hit and their commercial hit. With Supertramp, bear with me, guys. With Supertramp, you had Crime of the Century for the critical hit. Then you had Breakfast in America for the commercial hit. With 10cc, this was what I would say is the critical hit, and Deceptive Bends from 77 was a commercial hit with the things you do for love. Now, bear with me here. The original album had 8 tracks, 41 minutes and 46 seconds. Packs a hell of a punch in 41 minutes and 46 seconds. What was unique with, I was going to say again, XTC, 10cc. What was unique with 10cc was that you had all four of them were composers, vocalists, multi-instrumentalists, and producers. And from early on in the band, as far back as sheet music from the year before, you had two camps. You had Godley and Crumb in one, and Stewart and Goldman in another camp. So those two camps existed, but what was unique about that was the melding of the four. That to me made a beautiful medley or concoction of what was going to happen in the studio. And you get that on this album, Une Nuit à Paris, the 3-part, 8-minute, 40-second, what I call opus, written by Godley and Creme. Okay, to me, in my notes I have here, it's Edith Piaf meets the French Quarter. It is over the top. It is grandiose. It is harmonically, in terms of the melody, in terms of the harmonies, over the top, and it works to me. I mean, again, expect the unexpected when it comes to 10cc, right? And then you have I'm Not in Love, the lead off single, their breakthrough hit worldwide, lush harmonies, ethereal synth textures, just beautifully done, right? And this was where the cracks started to appear with the band because a year later, Garley and Creme would leave. Um, Blackmail as the final track uh, on the first side, again, pop confection. for me. The second sitting for the Last Supper. Multi sections, tight harmonies, thick guitar tone, just great piano. What I liked about 10cc's guitar playing, it was thick. It was just it was unique. It was you knew who it was when you heard them play, but the guitar tone also kind of teetered on fuzz guitar in terms of the sound that was coming out that they produced. It was unique. It was beautiful. If you carry on with the rest of the album, Brand New Day, uh, a piano driven track, really tight harmonies, nice use of timpani. That's what nothing was off limits with this band instrumentally. They did whatever they
Hmm.
all they wanted to do. And for me, as you can tell, I'm a fan. It makes the album more interesting for me to listen to, right? Um, Again, you have other songs, that come up, Flying Junk, a great thick guitar tone that I have in my notes, nice tight start and stop vocal cues on the track. The second single, Life is a Minestrone, okay, comedic, but you know what? In my notes, I have your quick time signature changes between verses and bridges, shimmering guitar on the intro, catchy chorus and melody. It For me, it works. It works. I mean, I can see why from listening to again, I'm not in love, that Mercury Records would offer them the contract. The original album ends off with the film of my love. Okay, 5 minutes and 7 seconds. And I gotta tell you, the fact that all four were vocalists on lead vocals at times, I had a tough time telling who was Eric Stewart, who was Graham Goldman or Garlene Creme on the tracks. But the film of my love, again, nice piano chords, tight harmonies, uh, inventive arrangements, and to me, I count it as being in 3/4 time. You know, the the CD when it came out, the bonus tracks were Channel Swimmer and Good News. That ends off. They could have put Good News on the original release in terms of a ninth track. For Good News, I have here fantastic melody, nice call and response, great piano. To me, I can listen to this album today and get into it. Like it's not limited to the time frame that it was released in my very humble
Sure.
opinion. I think that this album, for me, is fantastic. Um, Again, I like bands that at times take chances in their music. And I found it very interesting. I was reading up on this, and that members of the band felt that their album previous to this, Sheet Music, was their zenith instead of the rest of the releases. I found that very interesting because all of the elements that make up 10cc are in this album, right? When Golly and Creme left in end of 76, uh, Eric Stewart said that the following album after they left Deceptive Bands was more linear, more straightforward, more pop and rock oriented. It was good, but there was just something missing from the ingredients that made up the band, right? I just think that the original soundtrack for me is a phenomenal album. I think the more I listen to it, the more I like it. I mean, the first time I listened to Unu à Paris, I went out to Sound Connection and I bought all the albums on vinyl. I wanted to hear more. Do you know what I mean? It's the anticipation of the next track. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So
Mhm. There is kind of a fearlessness in this record, but in terms of the variety and pursuing what they did with the production and whatnot. But the other comment I had, is this fearless or is this foolish? Because again, it just seems like there's they're reaching for such things, and I, for me they don't always work. And again, I sort of put that back to the we're the smartest guys in the class and we know what we're doing and you can't question us sort of attitude that I get from the record.
I don't think it's they think they're the smartest guys in the class. I don't get that at all from what they do. I just think that as a band, they felt very early on that the rule was for them, there were no rules. They could do
Hmm.
whatever they wanted to do. And um, y- people said, well, uh, who said this? Anthony Curtis, a music journalist, he said this about Queen, that you never got the sense that this band took that Queen took themselves seriously as a band. Yes, they were serious about the music they did, but they never really took everything that seriously. I kind of get the same feeling for 10cc, that they never really took
Hmm.
themselves seriously, that they, you know, that to me, obviously there were tensions brewing in the band, but for this album, you kind of felt, to me, I felt that they were enjoying what they were doing together.
Hmm.
And it came across in the music. I mean, yeah, interesting song titles and interesting lyrical ideas. It's just, again, nothing was off the table for them.
Well, yeah, I mean, clearly, when you have a song like "Life is a Minestrone," you're not taking yourself too seriously. On I think their first album, they had a song called "The Worst Band in the Universe," and
Yeah.
again, it shows they're not taking themselves too seriously. But uh, yeah, we'll leave it at that.
Well, they also had a song in the first album called The Hospital Song, where the guy is saying, he's prone to catch every communicative disease known to mankind from anyone around him. So, I mean, like, again, nothing was off limits. I just think that, yeah, I mean, I just think that the original soundtrack to me is just a good example of a band doing whatever the heck they wanted to do in the studio.
Sure.
Okay, musically, not lyrically, but musically, am I the only one that picked up a little bit of Supertramp vibes?
No, I can hear some Supertramp vibes in there.
Maybe a little.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Armando, does this appeal to the part of your brain that loves Queen so much?
I would say so.
That connection, I can
I would
see.
say so. I mean, also, yeah, I mean, both bands dealt with, I mean, with Queen, the first two albums were full out rock albums. It was sheer heart attack, the third release that they started to branch out with with 10cc from the very first album. To me, it had more of a 1950s doo-wop kind of a feel in terms of the
Right.
music and the harmonies. But yeah, you can see how the crossover would happen or the
Yeah.
influence would be there. And both albums, the first Queen album and the first 10cc album came out the same month, 1970, July of 73. So, yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, because listening to this album, one of my first thoughts was that's that part of Armando's brain. Yeah. So
Oh
cool.
God. Help me, Lord.
Well,
Okay.
I
Well, it
mean,
would make sense
you
that if you
like
like X, you would like Y.
that's
Yeah,
right. That's
definitely.
right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Armando, you have mentioned several times you're a fan of what I refer to as theatrical rock. The spectacle. The no holds barred, kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. That makes sense.
All right. All right. So there you have it, guys. A very lengthy intellectual episode on album anniversaries, albums celebrating the 50th anniversary. Part one, we will be back next time with part two of albums celebrating the 50th anniversary. I want to thank Mr. Ken Cheshire and Mr. Jim Bricker, the man of the hour, coming along with me on this musical journey. Please put down in the comments below your views on the albums we discussed. Maybe we missed something, right? Maybe there's something that one or all of us are just not getting for any one of the albums that we talked about on this episode.
Should we tell them which albums we're going to be talking about in the second half so they can listen ahead of time?
Nope, that's going to be a
Ooh.
surprise.
Okay.
All right, gonna be a surprise.
No previous homework. All right.
No, 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 no.
We're the only ones who have homework.
There you go. There you go. Um,
Oh, so cool.
the fans, the people watching do not need to do any homework. We're the ones doing the homework for the episode. So, um, all right, ladies and gentlemen, again, we hope you enjoyed this episode. We do enjoy working together on these shows. It is quite fun. It's
Sure.
quite lengthy and at times intense, but we enjoy putting them together and hope you enjoy watching them. So again, let us know what you think of these list of 5 albums, and we'll be back with next week with episode part 2 of 50th anniversary for albums celebrating the 50th anniversary in the month of March in 1975. All right. So for again, Ken Cheshire and Jim Bricker, the men of the hour, I'm Armando Venditti signing off, and we'll see you soon with more episodes. Before I forget, click like and subscribe and hit the notification bell to keep yourselves on top of any new content I've got coming up. Almost forgot that. But again, we'll see you soon with more shows. Bye for now.